Well, hello all, and welcome to this. And this will be a non-free spoiler review because there's no way that this is not gonna not have spoilers in it. Me and I am joined by,
Nightmareballa 1, or Nightmare Comics 1, whatever you want to call me.
and we're going to talk about this because the Dark Knight Returns Part 1, because the Dark Knight Returns is, I believe it is your favorite Batman story as well.
Yeah.
And this is also right up there with Watchmen as one of the most important superhero stories ever. I think it's pretty easy to say.
Yeah, I would say so.
So
I don't know. Year one, I don't like it that much, but it's kind of important too. I
true,
would say.
true. But I mean, as far as Batman goes, this set the stage for what we know
Yeah,
Batman
I would agree with that.
today. So, for those of you who are stupid, and I will call you stupid, never read The Dark Knight Returns. It is what DC likes to call an Elseworlds comic, which means it is not in continuity. It is set place 20 years in the future?
Yeah, because he's 50, right?
He's 50 or 60. I don't think they actually ever say, but and the idea is that after Jason Todd was killed by the Joker, that Batman retired. So that is the premise of this, and the story is about him basically coming back, i.e. the Dark Knight Returns. So
he couldn't take anymore. He saw how bad everything was, and he came back for redemption.
yes, and this is definitely if you've seen Watchmen, Watchmen in this book are often compared a lot, and I would definitely say this is the opposite kind of the coin of Watchmen in a lot of ways, because this is definitely not the type of story that I think, or themes that I could see Alan Moore doing. And
Watchmen was more like a deconstruction of superheroes. This is more like an uplifting type deal.
No, I would say this is deconstructing too. But,
you think so?
Yeah, I think it was, it was deconstructing them to more of not to bring them down, but just more of to show kind of that they're not perfect beings. Does that make sense?
I get what you're saying.
This is, I mean, if you know anything about Frank Miller, and he's now a controversial figure because of things he's done. You need to
understatement of the year, right?
He is far more of a true, like, pulp fiction. When I say that, I'm not talking about the movie. I'm talking about true pulp fiction, pulp heroes from the 20s and 30s. He's much more of a fan of that. I'm sure if he could I'm sure if there was a way that he could have done this book and given Batman the revolvers. He didn't have revolvers, did he? He had. What did he have?
I thought they were. Well, he got a pistol.
They're Colts, right? Colt 45s, yeah. Batman had guns and he used them. So, but that is long gone. Though they did do that in First Wave, but that's for another time. But anyways, what?
Never read that. Well,
really? First Wave.
No.
First Wave's pretty good. I would. It definitely. You have to read it knowing kind of that it's a pulp thing, and that Batman is not put in the best of light because he's kind of like the young gun, and so guys like.
Who is this? Doc Savage.
It's Doc Savage.
It is
Spirit.
Shadow, right? Or the Spirit. Yeah,
Spirit.
And then Batman, right?
And then and Batman, and there's somebody else thrown in there. There's a couple other guys thrown in there too. So, but anyways, how if you could sum up real quick what the Dark Knight Returns, the comic, means to you, what would you say?
It was the book that kind of got me to stay because the Nightfall is like the first event I ever read in general. I would say, it's an event, so I would say it's like the first major comic story I ever read, and that got me interested. It's not the first comic, but the first story I've read. Like first overarching story. So that got me interested, but this kept me here. You know what I mean? Because it took everything that I thought Batman was, like seeing the old Adam West show and just even the animated series per se, and it was like totally different from anything I ever saw. And I think like this is like it hit. First off, it put the stamp on the fact that he's definitely my favorite superhero, and then it just kind of showed me that every writer has a different style, and comics are so creative because it's like still to this day, like nothing has ever been, I think, put together quite like this. But I think this book is one of the most original books still to this day. Like people that try to copy it's not, it doesn't come off as crisp, and then when they do, it's so blatant that it looks, totally different from what it is. So it is, to me, it's just like. I think I really believe it's perfection, like in terms of storytelling and impact and just everything is perfection. I have no problems with the book at all. It's the perfect story, I think. This is me.
This would have been as far as like Batman overall stories I'd read, this would probably be, I think, the 5th or 6th that I ever read.
What?
Yeah.
You better explain.
Well, no. I mean, like as far as as what I had read, because the first thing I ever read that was Batman was the first thing I actually read was.
Oh, okay. I get what you're saying. The Order.
Yeah, it was the Order, not. No. The Order was I read.
I was about to cry.
Was Son of the Demon, and then that was the first thing Batman that I actually ever read. And then I think after that I read Death in the Family, and then Bride of the Demon, and The Killing Joke, and then a few other things that had been collected, and then I read this. I actually don't have it now because like the version I have of the book actually does not say Elseworld story on it like they do now. I actually have, I think it's the second printing of the book. But the thing that got me was, and keep in mind, I had seen a movie that Frank Miller had written, or had co-written, I guess, before this, that most of you know, because Frank Miller was very big into the way RoboCop was done. And one of the things I liked about RoboCop was the little news feeds. If you ever actually seen probably the first 2 movies, there's the little cuts in where they're showing commercials and they're showing like newscasts and that sort of thing. This book, probably over half the story is told through newscasts.
And all of them are interesting. It's
yes,
not like,
and keep in mind that because of that, you have, like today where you have, page after page of nothing but full splash pages, you have pages on here that are 1, 2, 3, 4, that are like 16 panels on one page. So there's this is a dense book. This isn't, this is a big, dense, it takes a long time to read. It's not the densest thing I've ever read. That's from hell, which is just insane. But yeah, and it really, because I had read a lot of like great Batman stuff, and then I read this, and you could definitely see where this drew upon a lot of stuff from the past, and more stuff I read from the past. You can see that it drew from that, but also really set out a lot of different things in this book. And this was the first book in which you got the mighty, and for better or worse, Superman versus Batman battle, so to speak. This was the first time where they definitely had 2 different versions or visions of what the world was and how to combat crime and all of that. And Frank Miller has said that numerous times, that he looked at it as You know, Batman was the realist. He was the realist pessimist, whatever you want to call it, and Superman was the idealist. And they had two very different visions of the way they saw the world, even though where they wanted the world was kind of in the same place. So, and it's, you have all of that. But that and the Joker in this, which we don't see in the movie, which we'll get to, maybe is the second creepiest Joker I have ever read. So, because he is creepy in this book.
Man, it depends on how this Scott Snyder thing goes.
Yeah.
I don't like that. Oh,
That's some funky stuff. But anyway, let's talk about the movie. What did you think of the movie?
I thought it was not perfect because they did kind of tweak a couple things, but I thought that in terms of representing the spirit of the book and the tone of the book and even the look of the book, like I thought that's the one thing that bothered me the most. I wonder how it was gonna, because the book is hand drawn. It's like real, sketchy. What I mean, lines all over the page. A lot of people would say it's not pretty. I would say it's just more like, it's more, gritty. I would say, and I thought the movie would look, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, overly, like,
be more polished.
Yeah, like kind of. I expected it to look kind of like the Young Justice animated series. Because that's how the most of the DC features look like that anyway. And I thought it looked like that, and it did, and I was pleasantly surprised. But the story is pretty much intact. All the main points are hit. I'm sorry, this is a spoiler. The most important part of this movie and one of the turning points in the story is the mutant leader fight, and I thought I may actually prefer it in the movie, like, to be honest with you. And and they hit that well. How that just changed everything.
Well, do you think that's because you understood more of what was going on in the movie than, because in the book you really have to pay attention to what's going on to understand what's going on when he's fighting the mutant leader, or you don't really get what's going on. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true.
Because
that might be it. You might be right.
Because you don't get, I think, when the first time you read the book necessarily, if you're just reading through it, that Batman's not only fighting the mutant leader to fight the mutant leader, he's fighting because he knows if he beats the mutant leader, he basically beats the mutants. And yes,
he wanted all of them to watch, and
yes,
yeah.
and the villains in this are the mutants. Keep in mind that this book was written when X-Men was at just about their peak, and was the hottest thing going. And Batman was considered kind of an old-fashioned hero. So take that for what it's will. But anyways, you can keep going.
But that part is most important part of, to me, the entire book, and I thought like that was handled so well. Like I was with it. I was like, okay, I really like this. When I saw that, I was like, okay, this is the best DC animated feature. Not close. and then like I like the way Two-Face was done too. Like that part, even though that's the first book of the actual, graphic novel. And I was like, I was a little concerned because I thought they glossed over that. He got like half the movie. I was like really impressed. The mutants, like the way they were done, like the way they talked to each other, their manner of speaking and stuff was polished, just like it was in the book. Spot on. I thought Carrie was great too, even though I think that if I had, that's one of my little minor flaws, that I feel like they kind of rushed through her. Like her dynamic with Bruce was just kind of rushed through in the movie, but that's because they didn't have enough time, so I kind of get at a pass. It was just like, they meet each other, they're automatically close. It's like, it just seemed a little rushed. Like, they were a little too lovey-dovey. If you ask me, in the movie, and even though it's kind of like that in the book, it's like more of a respect thing. This was more like, it seemed like a father talking to a daughter in the movie. It was a little weird.
Yeah.
But because in the book, it's like, she's like his colleague, and this is like, like father-daughter type deal. It was just a little strange to me. And voice acting is great all across the board, minus my other problem with the movie, and that's the mutant leader. And it's not that it was bad. I just thought that for how I would think he'd sound, that's just not, that's just not what I thought. I thought that who Batman? Who did his voice? Peter Weller, right? Or Peter
Mm-hmm.
Weller?
Yeah, it's Peter
Yeah,
Weller.
he was incredible. Like he was the. There's only two people that could have been better. Michael Ironside, who they initially wanted to do it, and Clint Eastwood. That's it. Like,
Now
he
you
was
need to
incredible.
explain. You need to explain the Michael Ironside thing.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. There's yeah, I forgot about it. There's an episode of Batman animated series where these kids they all claim they saw Batman, and they all tell like different versions of their story, of like what they heard about him being, what they saw, and things like that. It's like one that's like how he is in the '60s, and one is the Dark Knight Returns, and what's the other one?
The one that's present isn't the one the present day.
Yeah, the one, the present
Is
day.
present, and the one that tells the Dark Knight Returns, which
Yeah,
I don't know
Michael.
anybody that figured it out the first time they've ever seen it, but when they're showing, they introduce the kids and they're showing the kids, and as soon as they tell the line where it's a girl and she goes, well, first of all, Batman's really old and Robin's a girl.
Yeah, Robin's a girl, and she looks just like Carrie.
And you're like, it's Carrie.
Because it was like the way they did that was great. Michael Ironside did his voice, and it's kind of cool because if you don't know, in that DC animated universe, he does the voice of the biggest villain in DC universe. You know, he does Darkseid's voice in the universe, so I think that's like cool how they did that. But he would have been great here because he was great in that little clip in the show. It was just it was great. But Clint Eastwood, you know. You think of old guy, you know, old tough guy. You think Clint Eastwood. So that would have been cool too. But I'm pretty sure that would have been a lot of money. But
yeah.
you know, and everyone else, everyone else was great. I thought that Two-Face was great for the little time he got. You know, whoever did the little girl that did Carrie's voice, the chick did. She was great too. I thought that I thought the animation was perfect. The fight scenes were great. This is one where he stops Two-Face and he shoots the grappling gun and the smoke and how he's picking off the guys and stuff. And they even do the pose, like the pose on the one I got. That's the pose. That's the
issue one pose.
Yeah, the issue one pose. Like they actually do it, and it's like they make a big deal out of it, and this movie's awesome. Go ahead, Josh. This movie's awesome.
So here are my thoughts. I loved it. I thought whoever they got to do Commissioner Gordon was pretty much dead on. Was dead on. He was one of the things I was kind of concerned about because I thought that they might throw his character kind of out. And
the monologue too in the
and that's the big difference. If you've read the book and you haven't seen the movie, the big difference is there is virtually no monologue in the movie, and I'm okay with that because I've never seen a movie where monologue works well. Maybe one or two, but for the most part, monologues don't work in movies. They found a lot of cool ways around it. They still told a lot of the same story. There is some monologue in it, it feels more like Bruce is talking to himself than it is him and Batman kind of having conversations with each other, which is a big part of the book. The guy that did I can't think of his name now. The butler.
Oh, Alfred?
Alfred, the guy that did Alfred, and the way they did Alfred was good too.
And that has me like excited for the second part because something really sad happens.
Yeah,
I'm a little scared. Hope I don't cry.
Hopefully they explain it better than they did in the book. Because it happens in the book and you don't know what happened until later, and you're like, huh? But there was that. I thought they did the mutants pretty much perfect. The fact that they pretty much set up really well, and if you've read it, the mutants are a gang, and Gordon sets out really quick that they are like the worst thing Gotham City has seen since the Joker, who is in this movie as well, though he doesn't say anything until the end, which is such an awesome ending for this. Because this is really a setup. My big complaints with the movie, I guess, even though they're minor like yours, is The way they handled the general story, which was a little different. I like the way it was in the book a little better. And you have that iconic pose of Batman holding him while he's holding the gun that he just shot himself with, draped in the flag, which is just
Oh
a,
yeah,
an
I bring
awesome,
that up.
an awesome, awesome pose. Also, the scene. There's a scene in the graphic novel where Carrie is in the Batcave when she finally gets to go to the Batcave, and she is kind of draped because she's being accepted by Bruce, and she's kind of draped around Bruce. And I'm pretty sure I know why they cut that scene out because it could be a little provocative, but in the book it doesn't come off that way because it does come off as kind of like kind of father daughtery type thing. Um, there's that. The thing I was really worried about is how they were going to do Carrie, who they did perfect. Again, this is a big spoiler. Carrie basically becomes Robin through her own will because she gets saved by Batman. Goes and buys a Robin costume and is just kind of decides to take it upon herself to be Robin and actually saves Bruce of her own accord. Um, and Bruce just kind of accepts her. And at that moment is really because up until that moment he's Batman, but he's not Batman. And then as soon as she shows up, he becomes a completely different character. Um,
Yep.
because the whole thing is he keeps like talking. They keep talking about Jason. Alfred keeps bringing up Jason. They bring up Dick and some other stuff too. And as soon as she shows up, where he's been talking about Jason before, and he says, he made a promise he was never going to do it again. He was never going to take the cape of be Batman again because of Jason. He t- Alfred brings up and says, well, what about Jason? And and after Carrie shows up, he says Jason was a good soldier, but the fight goes on or the war goes on or it's something like that, and he just totally changes, and you see it much more in the second and the second part of the story. 'Cause this is a two-part story, which
It had to
kind of
be.
understand.
Had to be.
Yeah, 3-hour cartoon would probably be too much for some people. By the end. Um, but I like that. And again, I love the ending. Just big spoiler. The ending is throughout the whole movie. You have Two-Face. Two-Face is the first big villain from the old days. And the story is that Bruce Wayne has funded the money to get Harvey's face fixed. And he does, but he stays as Two-Face. And you find out later that the whole reason is that even though his face is now whole, he sees himself as still the monster.
He
And
sees him as double ugly now.
yes, he sees himself as a whole monster now. And during this whole thing, because they're at Arkham Asylum, you see Joker, and Joker's in this vegetated state, and that's the same way it is in the comic. He's a vegetated state. He doesn't do anything. They make cracks about him and all this. And at the end of the movie, he finally wakes up and just says, Batman, darling, and it is awesome. I was just like,
In the movie, they never say like this is the Joker. You just see it, right?
yeah, you just kind
Yeah.
of see it. And they just kind of, you just, but that was awesome. So let me ask you this now. What are you worried about isn't going to be in the second part of this movie?
I feel like I feel like the Superman arc it's my favorite thing about second favorite. My favorite thing is something small I'll get to in a second, but it's my second favorite thing about the entire book. You have to spend a somewhat sustainable amount of time on it, and I hope they do. I'm just a little worried that they will rush to the fight, and because it's short, it has to be. Don't they have like a cap of like 80 minutes or something like that?
90.
So,
I think this was 90. So
well, I mean, but they have they're restricted to a
yeah,
degree. So I just hope they spend enough time on that, like the fact that Bruce does not agree with him being a government lapdog, and he's like, you're my friend, but I got to do what I got to do. We go way back. I get all that, and then especially Superman's opinions on Carrie and all. All this is a big part And I'm just worried that they will rush through all of it because
I figure the thing they're going to cut out, which I don't know how they're going to cut out, because it affects the story. Even the whole story is kind of the Cold War aspect of the story.
yeah, that's what I was just gonna get to that.
I think that part of it is probably what they'll leave out.
Yeah, the nuke. Yeah, the bomb. Oh my God! Like the whole thing with Superman after the bomb. Like
Yes.
oh man, they cut that out. I'll be sad. I'll be so sad. Oh man, I'll be so sad if they do that. Oh man, you got me worried now. I'm scared. Oh, I hope they don't do that. But that is important. Like that whole Superman thing is important. That's one concern. My other concern, I'm sure they'll do it. You know what I mean? But one of the coolest things about this book is that Green Arrow is in this book, and he's completely like batshit crazy now. He has like one arm, and it's just and like I just hope that he gets to do cool shit in the second part, and I hope that they do the chase scene with the Joker too, and I hope that whole thing is handled exactly how it is, and like the Joker's death and all that, like just do it exactly how it is in the book. I just hope they do that.
I agree. Well, they did announce at New York Comic Con, which was this past weekend while we're making this video, that the Nazi bitch will be in the movie. So.
Oh really?
Yes. Apparently, you can have her in the movie, but you can't show somebody smoking without getting an R.
This is crazy because
Tim was a little weird about that. He was like, "Huh?" He's like, "Okay." But yeah, so I figured if she's gonna be in it, which the second part, which we haven't really talked about the second part of the book, but the second part of the book is just it's pretty insane, some of the stuff that happens, and you see, like, seeing Superman through Carrie's eyes is pretty interesting to me. You know what I mean?
Now, what do you mean? Explain.
Like when Superman shows up for the first time.
Oh yeah.
And she's kind of like, was that him? and Bruce is trying to like get onto her because she did something wrong, and she's like, yeah, I understand, but was that him? Was that really him?
Because people say Superman is part Jesus Christ, part Hercules. So
yeah, it's like what it's like what but yeah, it's. I was very much surprised. To me, this is out of, I would say, from the movies that are not based on the cartoon series, this is probably my favorite. Which is saying
it's the best. Like it's not even close to me.
Because I didn't think that, I thought Under the Red Hood was pretty substantial, because that's actually better than the actual comic. So.
Way better than that.
Yeah, I mean, because it's not as long, and it's just better. My only real complaint with that would be, the way Dick is treated in that story. But other than that, I mean, that's pretty good. I mean, because year one's okay.
I really like year one, but let me explain why. I think the reason why I really like year one is because I'm not the biggest fan of the book. I think it's really good, but that's about it. And everyone and their mother told me that this is the best Batman story ever. I need to read it. Here you go. Read this book. And I read it. I was like, I liked it. It was cool. It's not really a Batman story. It's a Commissioner Gordon story, but and I like year one because I had I had no expectation for that, and I actually had fun with it, with some I didn't have with the book. So I really like that movie.
Agreed. I'm the same way. I mean, I really liked it, but I mean, excuse me. But I really it was much better than, what was that, Batman Knights or Batman Dark Knights or whatever that was.
Oh, Gotham Knight.
Gotham Knight.
That's the one with all the stories, right? Yeah, that was alright.
Yeah, it was alright, but it wasn't anything. I mean, this is definitely, I mean, this to me is up there with, some of the better with the better animated series movies. So think something.
I'll be honest with you, and I can't believe I'm actually going to say this, but for the longest, my 3 favorite like DC animated films were Mask of the Phantasm, Crisis on Two Earths, and The New Frontier. I think it's better than all of them, but like a good margin. Seriously, like maybe it's because how much I love the book. That's probably it. But I think like the only one you can argue is maybe Mask of the Phantasm. And that is it.
Yeah, that's the only one I think is better. Because mine were New Frontier, or Mask of the Phantasm, Sub-Zero, and New Frontier were my 3. So, and I definitely think this is better than Sub-Zero and New Frontier. So yeah. So that's saying something, folks. That's saying something.
Because New Frontier was written by Darwin Cook, so think about that.
Yeah. New Frontier's pretty good. If you haven't seen New Frontier, check that out. Because that's some stuff. That's some stuff. But since I have you here, I have one more thing to ask you.
Okay.
Because DC announced what is in store for us next year for the animated movies.
Oh God!
And one of the ones that they announced was Flashpoint.
What were all of them? Was it just Flashpoint?
It was Flashpoint, and the other one was the John's Brainiac, Superman Brainiac.
Oh, that is awesome. That is awesome. That should be pretty good. But do you want to know how I feel about Flashpoint?
Yeah.
Oh God. The comic is trash. Absolute trash. The last issue. I won't lie. The last issue was really good. But the thing is that it is a mess before you get there. The one thing I'm concerned about is that the comic is, even though I have my issues with it, most people I know do. It's a pretty complex story, and I mean a lot of explaining.
And it is a Batman story, so it is.
Well, yeah.
I mean, it's a Flash story, but Batman is the second biggest character in the story. So
yeah. Kevin Conroy is doing his voice though, so I'm good with that.
How does that work?
I mean, it doesn't matter. It's still Batman in the clothing. Kevin Conroy, I'm fine. Whatever. Even though Batman isn't necessarily Batman in Flashpoint, but and that was cool. Like, the thing that frustrated. This is gonna be a rant. The thing that frustrated me about Flashpoint is that the premise of it. If you ever read House of M, it is House of M in the DC universe. That in itself should just automatically make it better than House of M, and it was far worse. Just far worse.
Well, it was the opposite. It was the opposite of House of M, where House of M I think is really good, but all of the branching off stuff is
so it's like really bad. But the Flashpoint, most of the other stuff, like I like the Batman, I like the Aquaman, I like the Wonder Woman, but the actual story was crap. Like they did this cool thing where Aquaman and Wonder Woman were married, and Martha Wayne was the Joker, and all that shit was cool.
Like, now you got to say who. Now you got to say that Martha Wayne was the Joker. Now you got to.
And Batman was Thomas Wayne. All that was cool. Like they did just all this stuff that you would think about. You know what I mean? Like
and get this, they used the Wildstorm characters in a far better way.
Oh yeah, Grifter and
Zealot and who was the other one they used? And Voodoo.
Yeah, Voodoo's in it too. Yeah, but the universe itself is great. It's just the main story was all over the place. Like when they would jump to like different things, and Superman in this is the worst Superman ever. So I don't know. Like the thing is that this is a movie, and I'm pretty sure they won't have a lot of time to really like explain everything. I just hope they take the good parts of the book, kind of cut out the stuff that didn't need to be in it, which was the biggest problem with the book. It was a victim of itself. Like they wanted to do so much, but at the end they ended up doing very little. Nothing stuck with you. And at points it was just confusing. Like the third issue, I actually reread it the other week. I still don't know what happened. Like, I seriously don't get what's going on in that issue. I just don't. But I think it's pretty, you know. But I don't know what happened. If you asked me what that last page meant, I couldn't tell you. But you know, I just hope they just recognize what worked. Like focus more on the universe, I would say, than just the nonsense. Yeah, that's me. But I think it could be a good movie because all these have been good except Superman Doomsday. They've been at least good. So
Yep. Superman Doomsday was kind of, I don't know why they made that movie. Because it wasn't even off the comic. It was
like 3 different things. It was like
yes, it was
Doomsday, and then they had I guess they couldn't use like the clones. I guess
why not?
I don't know, but I don't know what was going on with that. That was just
stupid.
You
all they needed to do was have Doomsday show up, Doomsday go to Metropolis, Doomsday and Superman fight, Superman lose, and then bring in. I mean, if you don't want to bring in Steel, I can understand, but you could bring in the other 3. And
like he was like Cyborg Superman, except wasn't, and it was just not. Yeah.
It was like, hey.
But the first 15 minutes of it is great. That's the Superman, and I was with it at that point, and they just went into madness. It was just
the way the story was. It was just like whatever. But okay, here's one more question.
Trim the garbage, and then it should be pretty good. But go ahead.
Here's another question for you. What Batman story do you want to see next?
Ooh, and I hate to say this, but you probably have to break it up in a bunch of parts. But I don't really like the book, but No Man's Land would really work. And I hate to say that; it hurts to say that because I don't even like that story. But as a movie, I think it would. Great. But they have to tell it in a lot of parts.
Maybe if they ever bring back the comic book, maybe that's what they'll do.
Bring back the comic book.
I mean, not the comic book, the cartoon. That's what they'll do.
No, the original
series. Yeah, they'll do No Man's Land because it would take. I mean, that's what was it? 3 years long storyline.
It was almost not quite 3, but it was almost 3. And that was hell to read. I'm sorry. That's probably why I didn't like it that much. That was just hell.
But I was reading Batman when that was taking place.
You had to read Robin, and you had to read Nightwing and Batgirl. It was just too much. No, not Batgirl. Detective.
Birds of Prey. Yeah, you had to read Detective, Batman, Robin, Nightwing,
and Birds of Prey. Right?
Batwoman, Birds of Prey, Gotham, the Gotham City Police book.
Gotham. What was it called? That wasn't Gotham Central, was it? That was before that.
It was Gotham. It was whatever Gotham Police Department is, hyphenate or just the letters. And I think there was another one.
That was hell. That was just hell. And don't get me wrong, at the time, all great creative teams at the time. Yeah, Dixon and wasn't Rucko writing one at the time, and it was just
all sorts of.
Everyone, talented people. It was just too much.
I think they should do Killing Joke, but I don't think they will because if the next movie is going to be 52, is going to be Flashpoint. That kind of tells me that we're going to get new 52 movies after. So.
Oh man.